Okay, welcome back. All right, when we last left off, we were talking about La Meninas, a painting by Velázquez, and I raised the question of who are the reflection in the mirror. And so you probably, maybe on the break between one video and the next, you might have looked it up and you realized, oh, it's supposed to be the king and the queen of Spain. I believe Philippe and Isabella, but I could be wrong, are reflected in the mirror. And so then that raises the question of, are we standing in the position of the king and queen of Spain? And and that's kind of an interesting question because there's been a whole lot of studies done where a number of art historians have argued that we are actually standing based on the perspective system and based on the angle that we see the mirror at, that we must be standing actually slightly to the side of the king and the queen. So we're more in the position of a court attendant right next to them, just like the princess has attendants taking care of her. The king and queen might have attendants seeing to their needs. And so then we have this kind of interesting story where we have an artist. It's a painting about an artist making a painting. In the painting, the artist is working on a big giant canvas that's pretty much just about the same size and scale as the big giant canvas that we're looking at. So it almost implies he's working on the painting that we are looking at right now, but he's not, because the view he's looking at is in a way almost the opposite of our view. We are standing in the position of the sitter, but we're not quite standing in the position of the sitter. We're standing in the position next to the sitter. The focus of the painting seems to be the young princess, but that's not the name of the painting. So it's very complex. There's all sorts of other things. This man who's leaving the room is a cousin of Velázquez, who was a prime advisor to the king and the queen. And so there's all these other things kind of going on in the story. So why is the princess there? Well, she's probably there to amuse her parents while they're standing for their royal portrait. And why are the attendants there? They are there to amuse her, to keep her from misbehaving, and so that she stays there and amuses her parents. And so we have all of this elaborative narrative, all this layering of meaning. And add to that there are all these paintings on the back wall. These are paintings that Velázquez purchased, not with his own money, but like purchased for the king and the queen and set up in this room. Many of these are famous paintings um, by Rubens. We can identify many of the paintings are on the back wall. And so it's a painting, about the act of painting, about being a court painter. And it's a painting about court society. Um, and it's an incredibly complex layering of meanings. So the last couple of points I want to make, one point I want to make is that meaning and narrative is not easy to get rid of. Like, many artists have tried to make paintings where there's no narrative, um, and have wound up making paintings with lots of implied narrative. We don't know for certain what Malevich's intent was with black square, red square. Um, but it seems that he was, pursuing his suprematist ideas of trying to make a painting be just about the shape. And yet, and even if you don't view this as an allegory about politics, which it could be, it seems to have this implied narrative. The black square seems to be aggressively pushing on the red square. And Guston himself, we've looked at some other Guston paintings, had a similar kind of concern, where he tried and tried to make paintings where there was no implication, but the minute you put a shape in a painting, there is this sense of stuff, and then there's a sense of stuff happening. And let's just, in the last couple of minutes, talk about some contemporary artists and their interpretations. I think it's just up to there, yeah. Two contemporary artists and the way they use narrative that's different from narrative of the past. So a lot of contemporary artists make narrative more of an interactive event. So like Gillian Waring here is doing it's a photo documentation from a performance piece she did, where she just basically took a radio and a friend and got on a train, and every train station they stopped at, she got out in the station, in the largest area in that station. She put the radio down. She started playing musically loudly as possible and dancing as energetically and enthusiastically as possible, and tried to see how people reacted to it. Um, she is also a photographer, but a lot of her pieces are kind of interactive, like this piece here, where it was numerous fans and collectors of her artwork and just random people who participated in the piece, each taking a self-portrait of themselves with a sign that says something. And you can see a similar kind of interest in making narrative that is built on documentation and built on interaction in a photographer like Stephen Barron's work. He did a piece where for a year he took a photograph of every single person who came to his front steps or to his front porch. Every person who came, for whatever reason they came, he documented them and then showed all of those photographs. And it's both, it is narrative in a way, but it's it's primarily about the process, about documentation, and it's primarily interactive. He can't control the narrative because he doesn't know what people are going to do, how they're going to stand, how they're going to interact with him. And so then the last piece I want to talk about in terms of narrative is this Ai Weiwei piece, and both as a performance piece and as a piece that's kind of like a statement about how the development in China in the 90s was destroying a lot of Chinese culture, but also as to whether we should really believe the narrative, right? Or should we consider that the narrative is suspect? After all, I mean, Ai Weiwei could easily have had someone or himself have made a fake Han Dynasty urn in order to destroy. So do we believe the narrative? Okay, that's the end of that lecture. All right, I will see you in Unit 3.